The Human Cadaver Gas Explosion Experiment. In the early 20th century, scientists became fascinated with the gases produced by decomposing human bodies. As tissues broke down, a dangerous mixture of methane, hydrogen, and carbon dioxide would accumulate inside sealed chambers. To study just how explosive these gases could be, researchers carefully collected them and performed controlled tests. One small spark could trigger a violent explosion, demonstrating the hidden and terrifying energy locked inside decaying flesh. While it sounds like something out of a horror story, the experiment had a serious purpose. Morgues, funeral homes, and scientific labs needed to understand these gases to prevent accidents during body storage and transport. The findings revealed how decomposition could create pressure, flammability, and even health hazards if not handled correctly. It was a grim but crucial window into the hidden chemistry of death, showing that even after life ends, the human body can still be unpredictably powerful.
The rat suicide levers. In one of the most chilling animal behavior experiments of the 20th century, scientists placed rats inside small cages with a single lever. This lever was connected to a mechanism that would deliver a small, painful electric shock to the rat each time it was pressed. At first, the rats avoided it, but something strange happened. Under conditions of extreme stress, deprivation, or addiction, some rats began pressing the lever repeatedly, even though each press hurt them more. Researchers were stunned. They watched as rats shocked themselves over and over, as if locked in a destructive loop. Some pressed the lever to exhaustion, injury, or even death. The experiment revealed something horrifying about the brain. Under certain conditions, the drive for stimulation or relief can override even the instinct for self-preservation. What began as a simple study of behavior became a grim mirror of human tendencies, addiction, compulsion, and self-destruction. The rat suicide lever experiments changed the way scientists understood addiction and trauma, showing just how deeply the mind can be rewired when pushed to its limits.
Pavlov's dogs. At the turn of the 20th century, Russian scientist Ivan Pavlov conducted experiments that would forever change our understanding of the brain. He was studying digestion in dogs when he noticed something curious. The animals would start to salivate not just when food appeared, but when they saw the lab assistant who fed them. Intrigued, Pavlov began ringing a bell every time the dogs were fed. At first, the bell meant nothing, but after repeated pairings of bell and food, something remarkable happened. The dogs began to drool just at the sound of the bell, even when no food was present. This simple experiment revealed the power of conditioned reflexes, how the brain can link neutral stimuli to instinctive responses. The implications were enormous. Pavlov showed that behavior could be trained, predicted, and even manipulated. His work laid the foundation for modern psychology, behavioral therapy, and studies of habit formation. What started as a study of digestion became a window into the mechanics of learning itself, and the eerie realization that our minds can be shaped by repetition in ways we barely notice.
The Monster Study. In 1939, researchers at the University of Iowa conducted one of the most controversial experiments in psychological history. They worked with orphan children, some of whom already spoke fluently and some who had mild speech difficulties. The goal? To see if negative feedback could induce stuttering. Some children were praised for their speech, while others were criticized harshly for every small mistake. The results were shocking. Those who were constantly scolded began stuttering, some permanently. The experiment revealed just how fragile the developing mind can be and how words, especially negative ones, can leave lasting psychological scars. While it was meant to study speech patterns, the monster study became a dark lesson in ethics. Innocent children were used as guinea pigs for curiosity, leaving lifelong consequences for many. It stands as a chilling reminder of what can happen when science prioritizes discovery over human dignity, showing that the mind can be shaped or broken by the simplest of tools, words.
Milgram's obedience experiment. In the early 1960s, psychologist Stanley Milgram wanted to understand a disturbing question. How far would ordinary people go when told to obey authority? Volunteers were told to administer increasingly strong electric shocks to a learner whenever they answered questions incorrectly. The shocks weren't real, but the participants didn't know that. As the experiment progressed, the fake shocks reached levels labeled dangerous and even XXX. To Milgram's horror, most people continued pressing the buttons even when they thought they were causing real pain. The results were shocking. People who considered themselves moral and kind were willing to harm others just because an authority figure told them to. Milgram's study revealed the terrifying power of obedience, showing that under the right conditions, ordinary humans can commit acts they might never imagine on their own. It remains one of the most famous and unsettling experiments in psychology.
The Little Albert Experiment. In 1920, psychologist John B. Watson conducted a controversial study to see if fear could be taught. His subject was an infant, nicknamed Little Albert, who had no initial fear of animals or objects. Watson repeatedly paired a white rat with a loud, frightening noise. At first, Albert reached for the rat without hesitation, but after several pairings, something shocking happened. He began to cry, recoil, and show fear at the mere sight of the rat. The fear even generalized to other furry objects like rabbits, dogs, and coats. The experiment revealed the power of classical conditioning, how emotions can be learned and triggered by associations. But it also raised huge ethical questions. Little Albert suffered fear and distress, and there is no evidence he was ever desensitized. The study remains a haunting example of how humans, even from infancy, can have their minds and emotions manipulated in profound and lasting ways.
The Stanford Prison Experiment. In 1971, psychologist Philip Zimbardo set out to explore the psychological effects of perceived power. He created a mock prison in the basement of Stanford University and randomly assigned college students to be either guards or prisoners. What started as a 2-week study quickly spiraled out of control. The guards began humiliating, punishing, and psychologically tormenting the prisoners. Some prisoners became passive, depressed, or even traumatized, while the guards seemed to relish the control, adopting cruel behaviors they never imagined themselves capable of. The experiment had to be cut short after only 6 days due to the extreme mental distress it caused. It revealed a terrifying truth about human nature. In the right circumstances, ordinary people can commit acts of cruelty simply because a situation allows or encourages it. The Stanford Prison Experiment remains one of the most dramatic and unsettling demonstrations of the power of authority and social roles.
Operation Sea Spray. In 1950, the U.S. Navy conducted a secret experiment over San Francisco that sounds like something out of a science fiction thriller. They released clouds of harmless bacteria into the air to study how germs might spread over a city during wartime. Thousands of unsuspecting residents inhaled the bacteria without knowing they were part of a scientific test. While the bacteria were considered harmless at the time, a few people did develop mild infections, raising serious ethical questions about exposing civilians to biological experiments without consent. The operation revealed how easily airborne pathogens could travel and infect populations, but it also became a notorious example of government experiments on unwitting humans. Today, Operation Sea Spray serves as a chilling reminder of how curiosity and secrecy can put entire communities at risk in the name of science.
The Aversion Project. During the 1970s and 1980s in apartheid-era South Africa, the military conducted a shocking experiment aimed at curing homosexuality. Young men suspected of being gay were subjected to electric shocks, chemical castration, and other forms of extreme psychological and physical torture. Some were forced to watch explicit material while being shocked. Others underwent hormone treatments against their will. The so-called goal was to make them heterosexual, but in reality, it caused long-lasting trauma, physical harm, and emotional scars that lasted a lifetime. The Aversion Project remains one of the most infamous examples of science used as a tool of oppression rather than understanding. It revealed the horrifying consequences when ideology, cruelty, and so-called medical research intercept, leaving a chilling legacy of abuse under the guise of experimentation.
The Lobotomy Experiments. In the mid-20th century, doctors sought drastic ways to treat mental illness, leading to one of the most shocking practices in medical history, the lobotomy. Surgeons would sever or destroy parts of the brain, particularly the frontal lobes, in patients suffering from anxiety, depression, or other psychiatric conditions. The procedure was hailed as a miracle at first, as some patients appeared calmer or more manageable afterward. But the effects were often devastating. Many lost their personalities, emotions, and the ability to make decisions, while others suffered permanent cognitive and physical damage. The lobotomy experiments revealed the dark side of medical ambition, how the desire to control behavior and fix the mind led to irreversible harm. They stand as a grim chapter in the history of psychiatry, showing that sometimes the cure can be far worse than the illness itself.
The isolation tanks. In the 1950s and 60s, scientist John C. Lilly experimented with sensory deprivation to explore the human mind. Participants floated alone in dark, soundproof tanks filled with salt water, designed to eliminate all external stimuli. No light, no sound, and no touch except the water supporting their bodies. At first, the experience was peaceful, but after hours of isolation, many subjects began to hallucinate, lose track of time, and feel disoriented. Some reported vivid visions, intense emotions, or even out-of-body experiences, revealing just how fragile the human mind can be when cut off from reality. Lilly's experiments showed the brain's incredible power to create sensations and thoughts in the absence of input, but also the danger of extreme sensory deprivation. Isolation tanks became a window into consciousness itself, demonstrating that the mind can turn inward in astonishing, sometimes terrifying ways when the outside world disappears.
The lead experiments. In the early and mid-20th century, scientists conducted horrifying studies on children to understand the effects of lead on the human brain. Young participants were deliberately exposed to lead through paint, dust, and even food, often without full knowledge or consent. Researchers tracked how the metal affected learning, behavior, and cognitive development. The results were devastating. Children suffered irreversible brain damage, lowered IQ, and severe behavioral problems. Despite the obvious harm, the experiments continued because scientists were desperate for data on lead poisoning. These studies revealed the brutal reality of unethical research and the lasting impact of heavy metals on human health. The lead experiments remain a chilling reminder of the human cost when curiosity and science are prioritized over the safety and rights of children.
The MK-Ultra mind control experiments. During the 1950s and 60s, the CIA ran a secret program to explore mind control, targeting unsuspecting civilians, prisoners, and military personnel. Participants were given powerful hallucinogenic drugs like LSD, subjected to hypnosis, sensory deprivation, and even extreme psychological trauma. The goal was to see if the human mind could be manipulated, broken down, or programmed to obey commands without resistance. Many subjects suffered intense hallucinations, paranoia, and lasting mental damage, often with no knowledge of what was being done to them. MK-Ultra revealed the terrifying potential of science weaponized against the human psyche. It showed how easily the mind could be influenced or damaged when ethics are ignored, leaving a dark legacy of trauma and secrecy that still haunts history today.
The Harlow Monkey Experiments. In the 1950s and 60s, psychologist Harry Harlow conducted groundbreaking but controversial studies on infant rhesus monkeys. He wanted to understand the nature of attachment, so he gave baby monkeys 2 surrogate mothers, one made of wire that provided food, and another soft cloth mother that provided comfort but no nourishment. The results were striking. The monkeys clung to the cloth mother for comfort, only approaching the wire mother when hungry. Harlow discovered that emotional security and tactile comfort were more crucial to development than simply fulfilling physical needs. However, the experiments were emotionally harsh. Some monkeys suffered extreme stress, anxiety, and abnormal behaviors due to isolation from real mothers. Harlow's work revealed the deep psychological importance of love and contact, showing that attachment isn't just a human need, it's a fundamental part of life, with consequences for mental health that can last a lifetime.
First described by the philosopher Plato, Atlantis was said to be a mighty island empire, rich, powerful, and advanced far beyond its time. According to the legend, its people harnessed incredible knowledge and technology until arrogance and corruption brought about their downfall. In a single night, Atlantis sank into the sea, disappearing without a trace. For centuries, explorers and scholars have searched for it. Some place Atlantis in the Mediterranean, others in the Atlantic Ocean, the Caribbean, or even Antarctica. Ruins like Yonaguni in Japan and underwater structures near the Bahamas have only fueled the mystery. Was Atlantis a real city wiped out by rising seas and earthquakes? Or was it purely a moral tale invented by Plato to warn against hubris? The allure of Atlantis lies in possibility that somewhere beneath the waves rests a lost civilization that once rivaled or surpassed our own. Until it is found or proven a myth, the legend of Atlantis remains one of history's greatest unsolved mysteries.
The monster faces of head transplants. In the mid-20th century, surgeons like Vladimir Dimitrov conducted shocking experiments attempting to transplant the heads of animals. Dogs were the primary subjects, with 2 heads sometimes grafted onto a single body to see if nerves and blood vessels could survive the procedure. Some of the transplanted heads could still see, hear, and even growl, while the animals themselves struggled to survive with 2 brains controlling one body. The experiments were gruesome and raised huge ethical questions, but they pushed the boundaries of surgical science, laying early groundwork for organ and transplant research. Though humanity is still far from human head transplants, these experiments revealed the terrifying possibilities of biological manipulation. They stand as a stark reminder of the line between scientific curiosity and cruelty, and how far some were willing to go to explore the limits of life itself.
The Prisoner Starvation Experiment. During World War II, scientists conducted a grim study to understand the effects of extreme hunger on the human body and mind. Volunteers, mostly conscientious objectors, were placed on severely restricted diets for months, consuming only enough calories to survive, but far below what their bodies needed. As the study progressed, participants experienced dramatic weight loss, fatigue, dizziness, and intense psychological stress. They became obsessed with food, suffered mood swings, and many reported anxiety, depression, and social withdrawal. The researchers meticulously recorded every change, from muscle wasting to cognitive decline, to map how starvation affects humans. The experiment revealed the devastating physical and mental toll of hunger, providing vital data for post-war rehabilitation and nutrition science. But it also serves as a haunting reminder of how extreme conditions can push the human body to its absolute limits, turning survival into a daily struggle against both body and mind.
The Tuskegee Syphilis Study. Between 1932 and 1972, the U.S. Public Health Service conducted a shocking and unethical study on African American men in Tuskegee, Alabama. The participants were told they were receiving free medical care, but in reality, they were deliberately left untreated to study the natural progression of syphilis. As the disease advanced, men suffered severe health problems, blindness, organ damage, and even death, while the researchers documented every stage. Penicillin became a known treatment during the study, but the participants were denied it, leaving them to endure the devastating consequences of a preventable disease. The Tuskegee study exposed the dark side of medical research, highlighting how racism and unethical practices can cause immense suffering. It remains one of the most infamous examples of human experimentation, serving as a grim warning about the importance of ethics, consent, and compassion in science.
The gas chamber experiments. During the early 20th century, militaries and scientists tested the effects of poison gases on human volunteers, often soldiers or prisoners. Victims were exposed to lethal chemicals like chlorine, mustard gas, and phosgene to study how quickly the gases killed, what symptoms appeared, and how to protect troops. These experiments were brutal and terrifying. People suffered intense pain, blindness, respiratory failure, and sometimes death, all in the name of military research. Protective equipment, antidotes, and emergency procedures were developed as a result, but at a tremendous human cost. The gas chamber experiments revealed both the deadly power of chemical weapons and the dark side of scientific ambition when human life is treated as expendable. They remain a haunting chapter in history, a reminder of the ethical boundaries that were crossed in the pursuit of knowledge and war preparedness.
The Rat Park Experiment. In the late 1970s, psychologist Bruce K. Alexander challenged conventional ideas about addiction. He created a large, enriched environment called Rat Park, where rats had space to play, socialize, and explore, contrasting it with traditional isolated lab cages. The rats were given access to drug-laced water, and the results were astonishing. Isolated rats consumed far more drugs, sometimes to the point of overdose, while the socially enriched rats barely touched the drugged water at all. The study suggested that addiction isn't just about the substance, it's about environment, social connection, and mental well-being. Rat Park became a groundbreaking demonstration that isolation, stress, and lack of stimulation can drive addictive behavior. It flipped the understanding of addiction on its head, showing that human environments and social bonds may play a far bigger role in substance abuse than previously thought.
The experiments on Sleeping Beauty syndrome. In a quest to understand rare sleep disorders, researchers studied patients with Kleine-Levin syndrome, often called Sleeping Beauty syndrome. These individuals could sleep for days or even weeks at a time, waking only to eat or use the bathroom before falling back into a deep, almost unending slumber. Scientists attempted to induce or extend this state in controlled experiments to learn how the brain regulates sleep, consciousness, and metabolism. The results were both fascinating and eerie. Brains could enter prolonged periods of inactivity, yet retain basic survival functions, revealing the hidden resilience and complexity of human physiology. These experiments highlighted the mysteries of the sleeping mind, showing how little we truly understand about consciousness and the mechanisms that control wakefulness and rest. Sleeping Beauty syndrome became a window into the extraordinary and sometimes terrifying powers of the human brain.
The Guinea Pig Poison Testing. In the early 20th century, scientists conducted chilling experiments to determine the toxicity of various chemicals, often using human volunteers or sometimes prisoners and institutionalized individuals as test subjects. Participants were fed small amounts of poisonous substances, from industrial chemicals to experimental drugs, to see how their bodies would react. The results were often horrifying. Some experienced severe nausea, organ damage, or lasting health effects, while others faced death in extreme cases. Researchers meticulously recorded every reaction, from minor discomfort to life-threatening symptoms, in the name of understanding human tolerance. These experiments revealed the deadly fine line between scientific curiosity and ethical responsibility. They remain a stark reminder that the pursuit of knowledge can sometimes come at the greatest human cost, turning people into living test tubes in the most literal sense. The Brainwashing Experiments in North Korea. During the Korean War, reports emerged of prisoners and civilians being subjected to extreme psychological manipulation in secret experiments. Victims were placed in total isolation, exposed to constant indoctrination, and sometimes subjected to hypnosis or sensory manipulation to break down their will. The goal was to erase independent thought, enforce obedience, and reshape beliefs entirely. Many subjects suffered severe mental trauma, confusion, and identity loss, with long-term psychological effects that lasted well beyond their captivity. These experiments revealed the terrifying power of prolonged isolation and mental coercion. They serve as a chilling example of how science and psychology can be twisted into tools of control, showing the devastating consequences when human minds are treated as objects to be molded.
The experiments with psychopaths. Over decades, psychologists and criminologists conducted studies to understand the minds of violent criminals and psychopaths. Researchers tracked behavior, brain activity, and decision-making patterns to uncover what makes some individuals completely lack empathy or moral restraint. Volunteers or subjects were observed in controlled settings, often tested with moral dilemmas, stress challenges, and social interactions. The experiments revealed striking patterns. Some psychopaths could charm, manipulate, and deceive effortlessly, while showing no remorse for harming others. These studies provided critical insights into human behavior, criminal psychology, and the roots of violence. But they also raised ethical questions. Observing such destructive tendencies over long periods forced scientists to confront a chilling truth. Some aspects of human nature can be dangerously detached from empathy, morality, or conscience.
The Manhattan Project Human Radiation Tests. During World War II, as the U.S. raced to develop the atomic bomb, scientists conducted secret experiments exposing soldiers, prisoners, and hospital patients to radiation. The goal was to understand how nuclear radiation affected the human body, from immediate sickness to long-term cellular damage. Participants were sometimes injected with radioactive isotopes or placed near radioactive materials, often without fully understanding the risks. Many experienced nausea, burns, or other acute effects, while the long-term consequences, cancer, organ damage, and genetic mutations remained a hidden cost. These tests revealed the terrifying power of radiation and the human toll of nuclear experimentation. They remain a stark example of how scientific progress, military ambition, and secrecy can combine to put real people in extreme danger, all in the name of advancing technology.
The experiments on homeless people. Throughout the 20th century, scientists sometimes targeted vulnerable populations, including homeless individuals, for medical experiments. They were given experimental drugs, vaccines, or treatments, often without their informed consent, to observe effects ranging from immunity responses to toxicity. Many participants suffered serious side effects, including illness, organ damage, or long-term health complications. Some were unaware of the true purpose of the experiments, believing they were receiving standard medical care. These studies exposed a dark side of scientific research, where curiosity and experimentation were placed above ethics and human dignity. They serve as a grim reminder that the safety and rights of the most vulnerable must always be protected, and that progress achieved through exploitation leaves a haunting moral legacy.
The Human Freezing Experiments. During World War II, Nazi scientists conducted chilling experiments to understand how the human body reacts to extreme cold. Prisoners were subjected to freezing water, snow, and sub-zero temperatures to study hypothermia, survival limits, and potential rescue methods. Victims shivered violently, lost consciousness, and sometimes died from exposure. Researchers measured how long it took for core body temperatures to drop, how the body responded physiologically, and what methods might revive or protect humans from freezing. These experiments revealed the deadly effects of extreme cold on the human body, but at an appalling human cost. They remain a horrifying reminder of how science can be twisted into cruelty when human life is treated as expendable in the pursuit of knowledge.
The experiments on magnetic fields and mental states. In the mid-20th century, scientists explored the idea that magnetic fields could influence human thought, mood, and behavior. Volunteers were exposed to varying intensities and patterns of magnetic energy to see how it affected brain activity, emotions, and cognitive performance. Some participants reported sudden shifts in mood, heightened anxiety, or unusual sensations, while others experienced improved focus or relaxation. Researchers believe these effects could unlock new ways to treat mental illness or enhance cognitive function. While the results were intriguing, the experiments also raised questions about the ethics of manipulating the mind with unseen forces. They highlighted both the promise and the potential danger of directly influencing human consciousness, showing how fragile and responsive our mental states can be to external physical stimuli.
The Microgravity Experiments on humans. As humans began exploring space, scientists became fascinated by how the body reacts to weightlessness. Astronauts and volunteers were placed in zero-gravity environments or simulated microgravity, floating freely for hours or even days at a time. Researchers observed how organs shifted, bones lost density, muscles atrophied, and blood flow changed in the absence of gravity. Participants often experienced disorientation, nausea, and a strange sense of detachment from their own bodies, revealing just how dependent human physiology is on Earth's gravity. These experiments were crucial for understanding the challenges of long-term space travel, helping to develop exercise routines, spacecraft designs, and medical protocols to protect astronauts. They showed the extraordinary adaptability and vulnerability of the human body when removed from its natural environment, providing a glimpse into the extremes of human survival.
The LSD experiments on prisoners. During the 1950s and 60s, scientists and intelligence agencies experimented with the powerful hallucinogen, LSD, to explore its effects on the human mind. Prisoners were given the drug, often without full consent, to study hallucinations, perception changes, and the potential for mind control. Under the influence of LSD, participants experienced vivid visual and auditory hallucinations, extreme anxiety, and in some cases, lasting psychological trauma. Researchers aimed to see if the drug could manipulate thoughts, break down resistance, or extract information, turning the mind into a laboratory of unpredictable effects. These experiments revealed the terrifying power of psychedelics over human perception and consciousness, highlighting both the potential for discovery and the deep ethical violations of testing on vulnerable populations. The LSD studies remain a haunting chapter in the history of mind-altering science.
The rats with implanted devices. In cutting-edge neuroscience experiments, researchers implanted tiny electrodes and devices directly into the brains of rats to monitor neural activity in real time. These implants allowed scientists to observe how thoughts, decisions, and emotions were represented in the brain as electrical signals. Some experiments went further, sending small electrical impulses to influence the rat's behavior, making them move, press levers, or navigate mazes on command. The results were astonishing. Scientists could literally watch the brain think and even guide it, offering unprecedented insight into cognition and neural pathways. While revolutionary, the experiments also raised serious ethical questions about manipulating living minds. They revealed the incredible power of technology to peer inside consciousness, showing both the promise of neuroscience and the unsettling possibilities of controlling behavior at its most fundamental level.
The Electric Fetus Experiments. In the mid-20th century, scientists conducted shocking studies on unborn animals to understand how electrical currents affected development. Fetuses were exposed to controlled electric shocks while still in the womb, with researchers observing growth, nerve development, and physiological responses. The results were both fascinating and disturbing. Some fetuses showed abnormal development, while others experienced malformations or nervous system changes, revealing how sensitive life is even before birth. Researchers hoped these experiments would shed light on developmental biology, neurology, and the effects of electricity on living tissue. These studies highlight the extreme lengths science has gone to probe the mysteries of life. They remain a controversial chapter, showing how curiosity about development and physiology sometimes came at a profound ethical cost to sentient life.
The experiments on blindfolded perception. Scientists have long been fascinated by how the human brain compensates when one sense is removed. In these studies, volunteers were blindfolded for hours or even days, while researchers tested their ability to identify objects, navigate spaces, and detect sounds or smells. Participants often experienced heightened awareness of touch, hearing, and smell, while some reported strange illusions or disorientation as the brain tried to fill in missing information. The experiments revealed both the incredible adaptability of the human mind and the limits of perception when sensory input is restricted. These studies provided insight into cognition, sensory integration, and neural plasticity, showing how flexible yet vulnerable our senses truly are. They highlighted the hidden powers of perception and the strange, sometimes unsettling ways the mind reacts when it loses one of its most relied-upon tools.
The experiments on inescapable shock. In the mid-20th century, psychologists conducted studies to understand how organisms respond to uncontrollable stress. Animals, and later humans, were subjected to mild but unavoidable electric shocks with no way to escape or avoid them. Over time, subjects stopped trying to escape or defend themselves, even when an opportunity to do so was later presented. This phenomenon, known as learned helplessness, revealed how repeated exposure to uncontrollable adversity can crush motivation, induce depression, and impair problem-solving abilities. These experiments illuminated the mechanisms behind depression, trauma, and anxiety, showing how environmental factors can deeply shape behavior and mental health. While ethically troubling, the research offered critical insights into the psychology of helplessness and the devastating impact of persistent stress. The Cannibalistic Experiment Myths. Throughout history, rumors have circulated about experiments where humans were forced to consume human tissue to study survival, physiology, or psychological effects. While most accounts are exaggerated or unverified, they capture a dark curiosity about the limits of human endurance and morality. Stories claim subjects were observed for digestion, nutrient absorption, and the mental toll of consuming human flesh. Whether entirely true or partly myth, these tales reflect society's fascination with extreme human behavior and the boundaries of ethical science. Even as myths, these experiments serve as a chilling reminder of how far people have speculated or allegedly gone in the name of survival and experimentation. They highlight the thin line between scientific curiosity and moral horror, leaving an unsettling mark on the history of human experimentation. The experiments with zombie drugs. In certain extreme pharmacological studies, researchers explored toxins that could induce a death-like state in humans or animals. These substances slowed heart rate, respiration, and metabolism to near undetectable levels, creating the appearance of death while leaving the subject alive. Such experiments aim to understand potential medical applications, like preserving life during surgery or trauma, but they also sparked fears and legends of zombie substances. Volunteers exposed to these drugs sometimes experienced paralysis, hallucinations, and terrifyingly distorted senses of time and reality. The studies revealed both the fragility and resilience of the human body, showing how close life and death can appear under chemical influence. They remain a haunting example of science probing the boundary between consciousness and the brink of mortality.
The experiments on split-brain patients. In the 1960s, neuroscientists performed surgeries on patients with severe epilepsy, severing the corpus callosum, the bridge between the two brain hemispheres, to stop seizures. This created a unique opportunity to study how each half of the brain functions independently. Researchers discovered something extraordinary. Each hemisphere could perceive, process, and even respond to information on its own. In some tests, one hand would perform actions contradicting the other, or one side of the brain would know something the other had no awareness of. These findings revealed a kind of dual consciousness, showing that the human mind can operate as two separate processors within a single body. The split brain experiments revolutionized neuroscience, providing deep insight into cognition, perception, and the mysterious architecture of consciousness. They showed that our sense of self and awareness is far more complex and astonishing than previously imagined.
The experiments in brain death and revival. In a quest to understand the boundaries between life and death, scientists have conducted experiments attempting to revive brains after clinical death. Using animal models and, in some controversial cases, human tissue, researchers tested electrical stimulation, chemical treatments, and cooling techniques to restart neural activity. These experiments revealed that, under certain conditions, parts of the brain could regain function hours after blood flow stopped, challenging traditional ideas about the permanence of death. Some subjects showed renewed cellular activity, while others exhibited signs of restored metabolism, sparking both excitement and ethical debate. The research raises profound questions about consciousness, mortality, and the limits of medical science. It demonstrates how close life and death truly are, and how modern technology might one day blur the line between the two, transforming our understanding of what it means to be alive.
The experiments with induced amnesia. In pursuit of understanding memory and cognition, scientists experimented with chemicals and drugs designed to erase or block specific memories. Volunteers or animal subjects were exposed to these substances to see if past experiences, learned behaviors, or traumatic events could be selectively wiped from the mind. The results were both fascinating and unsettling. Subjects sometimes lost critical skills, personal recollections, or emotional associations, leaving gaps in their identity and awareness. Researchers hoped this could one day treat trauma or neurological disorders, but the experiments also revealed the terrifying fragility of memory and selfhood. These studies highlight how intimately our memories shape who we are, and how manipulating them could fundamentally alter personality and consciousness. They serve as a chilling reminder that science has the potential to touch the very essence of what makes us human.
The experiments on hypothermia and rewarming. Scientists have long studied how the human body responds to extreme cold, often simulating freezing conditions to understand survival limits. Volunteers or animal subjects were exposed to icy water or sub-zero environments, while researchers monitored core temperature, heart rate, and organ function. After prolonged exposure, subjects were gradually rewarmed using different techniques, revealing how the body recovers, or fails to recover, from hypothermia. The experiments showed the fine line between survival and irreversible organ damage, highlighting the critical importance of timing and method in life-saving interventions. These studies provided vital knowledge for treating hypothermia in medical emergencies, wartime scenarios, and extreme sports, while also revealing the extraordinary resilience and fragility of the human body under lethal cold stress.
The experiments on sensory overload. In an effort to understand how humans respond to extreme stimuli, researchers subjected volunteers to intense sound, flashing lights, and other overwhelming sensory input. The goal was to study stress responses, attention limits, and the breakdown of cognitive control under intense environmental pressure. Participants often experienced disorientation, panic, nausea, and temporary hallucinations. Some were pushed to the point of exhaustion or mental breakdown, revealing just how fragile the human nervous system can be when bombarded beyond its capacity to cope. These experiments provided crucial insights into human perception, tolerance, and the limits of mental endurance. They also served as a cautionary tale about the ethical boundaries of pushing the mind to its absolute limits, showing how easily sensory environments can overwhelm and manipulate human behavior.
The experiments on hallucinogenic plants. Scientists have long been fascinated by the mind-altering properties of plants used in traditional shamanic rituals. In controlled laboratory settings, participants were given substances like peyote, psilocybin mushrooms, or ayahuasca to study their effects on perception, cognition, and emotional states. Subjects reported vivid visions, altered senses of time, profound spiritual experiences, and sometimes terrifying hallucinations. Researchers observed how these substances interacted with the brain, seeking to understand consciousness, creativity, and even potential therapeutic applications for mental health conditions. While the experiments offered groundbreaking insights, they also revealed the unpredictable and powerful nature of these plants. They highlighted the delicate balance between scientific curiosity and safety, showing how substances that have inspired spiritual exploration for centuries can also push the human mind to extreme and sometimes unsettling states. The experiments on human electrical resistance. In a quest to understand how electricity interacts with the human body, scientists conducted studies measuring the body's ability to conduct and resist electrical currents. Volunteers were exposed to varying voltages, while researchers recorded reactions, pain thresholds, and physiological responses. Some experiments were surprisingly dangerous, with participants experiencing muscle contractions, burns, or fainting. The studies revealed how electricity travels through tissues, how the body's resistance changes with moisture, and how exposure can affect vital organs like the heart. These experiments were crucial for developing safety standards, medical devices, and electrical engineering practices, but they also showcased the risks of testing directly on humans. They remain a reminder of how the human body can be both resilient and vulnerable when faced with the invisible power of electricity.
The experiments on forced evolution. In the pursuit of understanding intelligence, scientists conducted controversial experiments on animals, selectively breeding generations to enhance specific traits such as problem-solving, memory, or learning ability. Over multiple generations, researchers observed changes in behavior, cognition, and sometimes even physical traits, revealing how selective pressures could accelerate certain capabilities. While the experiments offered fascinating insights into genetics, heredity, and evolution, they also raised serious ethical concerns about manipulating life purely for scientific curiosity. These studies showed both the potential and danger of human intervention in natural processes, highlighting the fine line between exploration and exploitation. Forced evolution experiments remain a thought-provoking and unsettling example of science pushing life toward predetermined goals.
The experiments on extreme isolation in caves. Scientists have long been fascinated by how complete sensory deprivation affects the human mind. In these studies, volunteers were confined to dark, silent caves for days or weeks, cut off from sunlight, sound, and social interaction. The effects were profound. Participants experienced disorientation, hallucinations, paranoia, and sometimes full mental collapse. Sleep cycles and perception of time became completely distorted, and even simple tasks became impossible as the brain struggled without external cues. These experiments revealed the fragility of human cognition and the importance of environmental and social stimuli for mental stability. They offered critical insights into psychology, human endurance, and the brain's response to extreme stress, while also serving as a stark warning about the dangers of prolonged isolation.
The experiments on human autonomy deprivation. Psychologists have conducted studies to understand how humans behave when stripped of choice and control over their lives. Participants were placed in environments where every decision, from what to eat to when to move, was dictated by the researchers. Over time, many showed signs of extreme stress, depression, and learned helplessness. Some became compliant to the point of following harmful or nonsensical instructions without question, while others resisted, experiencing intense psychological conflict. These experiments revealed the profound importance of autonomy for mental health, showing how quickly control, or the lack of it, can shape behavior, obedience, and identity. They serve as a chilling reminder of the psychological cost of taking away human freedom, highlighting the dark potential of environments designed to suppress choice.
The experiments on mind transfer in animals. In the quest to understand consciousness, scientists have attempted the unimaginable, transferring neural activity or even entire brains between animals. These experiments often involved intricate surgery, electrical stimulation, and careful monitoring of behavior after swapping brain functions. Some animals displayed startling changes in behavior, coordination, or memory, suggesting that certain aspects of cognition could be influenced or even partially transferred by manipulating brain connections. While the results were sometimes promising for neuroscience, the procedures were invasive, painful, and ethically controversial. These experiments revealed both the extraordinary potential and terrifying limits of science in exploring consciousness. They challenge our understanding of identity, the mind-body connection, and the very nature of what makes an individual who they are.
The experiments on phantom limbs. Scientists have long been intrigued by the brain's perception of the body, even when parts are missing. In these experiments, participants had limbs temporarily immobilized or faked amputations to study how the brain responds to the illusion of loss. Subjects often reported sensations, itches, or even pain in limbs that weren't actually missing, phenomena now known as phantom limb sensations. Researchers used mirrors, virtual reality, and other tricks to manipulate perception and understand how the nervous system maps the body. These studies revealed the astonishing adaptability and sometimes confusion of the human brain. They showed that our sense of self and body is not fixed, but constructed by the mind, providing deep insight into perception, neuroplasticity, and the mysteries of consciousness itself.
The experiments on sleep deprivation. Scientists have pushed humans to the brink of psychosis to understand the effects of prolonged sleeplessness. Volunteers were kept awake for days or even weeks, subjected to constant stimulation, observation, and mental tasks while denied rest. As the hours turned into days, participants experienced hallucinations, paranoia, memory loss, and severe emotional instability. Some showed complete cognitive breakdown, unable to perform even simple tasks or distinguish reality from imagination. These experiments revealed the vital role of sleep in maintaining mental health and brain function. They highlighted how quickly the human mind unravels without rest, offering critical insights into psychology, neurology, and the extreme limits of human endurance.
The experiments on cannibalistic fungus. In a dark corner of microbiology, scientists have experimented with fungi that can consume human tissue. In controlled lab settings, samples of human tissue were provided to study how quickly and efficiently these fungi grow, digest proteins, and adapt to complex organic material. The experiments revealed astonishing resilience and adaptability, as some fungal species not only thrived but evolved mechanisms to break down tissue more efficiently over time. Researchers hoped this could shed light on decomposition, medical treatments, or even bioengineering applications. While the work offered insights into fungal biology, it also bordered on the macabre, blurring the line between science and horror. The studies serve as a chilling reminder of nature's power and the extremes humans will explore to understand it.